Have you ever felt short of breath, climbing a single flight of stairs and told yourself, "It's just age catching up with me"? What if that excuse was the very thing putting your life at risk? Every year in the United States, over 6 million people live with heart failure. And the tragedy is that most of them ignored the earliest warnings until their hearts were already in serious trouble. This isn't a disease that strikes out of nowhere. It creeps in silently, disguising itself as fatigue, stress, or the normal wear of getting older. But make no mistake, your body is sending signals. And if you don't learn to recognize them, those quiet whispers can turn into a life-threatening emergency. The danger is real, and the clock starts ticking the moment you dismiss these signs as nothing. I'm Dr. Mark Ellis, and in this video, I'm going to reveal 13 early signs of heart failure that most people completely overlook. Some will shock you, like why a simple bend forward to tie your shoes can suddenly leave you breathless, or why you wake up at night desperate for more pillows just to breathe. These are not random inconveniences. They are red flags that could save your life if you pay attention now. And here's my promise: by the time we're done, you'll not only know the subtle symptoms your body uses to cry for help, but you'll also understand when to act, what to tell your doctor, and how to protect yourself and your loved ones before it's too late. So lean in, because what you're about to hear could very well change or even save your life. The very first sign your heart may be in trouble is shortness of breath during activities that once felt effortless. I'm not talking about gasping for air after running a marathon. I mean something much more subtle and much more dangerous. Imagine walking to your mailbox or climbing a single flight of stairs and suddenly feeling like your lungs just can't keep up. At first, you blame it on being out of shape, but deep down you know something feels different. Let me share a quick story. Robert, a 67-year-old retired carpenter, told his doctor he was running out of breath just carrying groceries from the car. He brushed it off for months, thinking it was just age catching up. By the time he went in for testing, doctors discovered early-stage heart failure. His heart simply wasn't pumping enough blood to supply oxygen to his muscles. The shortness of breath was his body's cry for help, but like millions of Americans, he ignored it. And the science confirms this. According to the American Heart Association, exertional breathlessness is one of the most common early signs of heart failure, often appearing months, even years before other symptoms. What's happening inside your body is simple. Your heart can't meet the oxygen demand, so your lungs work overtime. That's why you feel winded after simple chores you used to do with ease. So here's the key takeaway: if you notice you're stopping more often, resting halfway up the stairs, or struggling with tasks you once breezed through, don't chalk it up to aging. That's your heart waving a red flag, and the earlier you notice, the better your chances of protecting it. But just recognizing this one sign isn't enough, because there's another subtle warning that creeps in silently while you sleep, and it can be even more alarming than breathlessness. Now let's talk about a symptom that hides in plain sight, and it usually shows itself when the world is quiet and you're trying to sleep. Orthopnea, the medical word for struggling to breathe when lying flat. At first, you might notice you sleep better with an extra pillow, thinking it's just for comfort. Then suddenly 2 pillows become 3, and before long, you're sitting upright in a recliner, because that's the only way you can breathe easily through the night. Take the story of Margaret, a 62-year-old grandmother. She used to fall asleep flat on her back without a problem. Over the year, she added 1 pillow, then 2. Eventually, she could only sleep propped up. She thought it was just her way of being comfortable, but in reality, her heart was struggling. Blood was backing up into her lungs the moment she lay down, forcing her body to fight for air in the middle of the night. And the numbers don't lie. Studies show that nearly 80% of patients diagnosed with heart failure report orthopnea as a common symptom. It happens because when gravity no longer helps your heart return blood from your legs and body, fluid builds up in the lungs. That's why lying flat feels suffocating. This isn't about comfort, it's about circulation, and your heart telling you it can't keep up. So here's what you need to know if you've gone from sleeping flat to stacking pillows or even sleeping upright just to breathe comfortably. Don't dismiss it as a personal habit. It's one of the most overlooked red flags for early heart failure. But only knowing this sign still won't save you, because there's another nighttime warning that feels even scarier. It jolts you awake gasping for air, like you're drowning in your own sleep. And that's where things get truly dangerous. If orthopnea forces you to stack pillows, this next sign can feel downright terrifying. Imagine this: you're asleep. The room is quiet, when suddenly you jolt awake, gasping for air as if you're drowning in your own bedroom. Your heart is racing. Panic floods your body, and you scramble to sit up or rush to an open window just to catch your breath. That shocking experience is known as paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, or PND, and it's one of the clearest warnings that your heart is in trouble. Let me paint you a real picture. James, a 64-year-old truck driver, thought his nightly awakenings were due to bad dreams. But the truth was far more dangerous. Fluid that had built up in his legs during the day was redistributing into his lungs once he lay down, and his weakened heart simply couldn't handle the sudden load. The result: he woke up gasping night after night, mistaking heart failure for nightmares until doctors finally explained the truth. And here's the science: research shows PND episodes often strike 2 to 4 hours after falling asleep. It happens because your heart is too weak to pump the sudden rush of returning fluid, leading to shortness of breath so intense it forces you awake. Clinical studies reveal that patients with recurring PND are at much higher risk of hospitalization and worsening heart failure. This isn't just about lost sleep, it's about survival. So if you've ever found yourself bolting upright in the middle of the night, gasping like you can't get enough air, don't brush it off as a bad dream. It could be your body's emergency alarm that something deeper is wrong. But even knowing this frightening sign is not enough, because heart failure doesn't just attack your nights, it also drains your energy during the day, leaving you exhausted by tasks you once loved. And that relentless fatigue is another warning you can't afford to ignore. We all get tired sometimes, but there's a big difference between normal tiredness and the kind of exhaustion caused by a struggling heart. This isn't the kind of fatigue that goes away after a good night's sleep. It's the kind that clings to you, making everyday tasks, carrying groceries, showering, or even having a conversation feel like climbing a mountain. When your heart can't pump efficiently, it diverts blood away from your muscles and sends it to your brain and vital organs. The result: your body runs on empty, leaving you weak and drained even after doing the smallest things. Consider Maria, a 59-year-old teacher who noticed she could no longer keep up with her students. Walking down the hallway left her winded, and by the time she got home, she collapsed onto the couch for hours. She thought she was simply burned out, but doctors later explained her heart wasn't delivering enough oxygen-rich blood to her muscles. That relentless fatigue wasn't in her head, it was in her heart. The science backs this up. Studies show that fatigue and reduced exercise tolerance are among the earliest and most under-recognized symptoms of heart failure. Patients often adapt without realizing it, slowly giving up activities they once enjoyed, blaming it on age, and silently adjusting their lives around a weakening heart. The scary part is how gradual this decline can be. You barely notice until your world has shrunk around you. So if you find yourself exhausted by chores that used to energize you, or needing far longer to recover after a short walk, don't dismiss it as just aging. That persistent fatigue could be your body warning that your heart is struggling to keep pace. But understanding fatigue is only part of the puzzle, because heart failure doesn't just sap your energy, it also leaves visible marks on your body, starting with swelling in your ankles and legs. And that's where the next warning sign appears. One of the most visible red flags of heart failure doesn't happen in your chest at all. It shows up in your feet and ankles. It starts as mild puffiness you notice at the end of the day, maybe when your socks leave deeper marks than usual. Over time, that puffiness turns into swelling that feels heavy, uncomfortable, and hard to ignore. This isn't just fluid from sitting too long, it's your heart struggling to move blood efficiently, forcing fluid to leak out of your blood vessels and pool in your tissues. Take Linda, a 71-year-old grandmother. She noticed her shoes felt tighter in the evenings, and by night, her ankles looked swollen like balloons. She thought it was just circulation issues from standing too much. But her cardiologist explained the truth. Her weakened heart was causing blood to back up in her veins, her kidneys to retain salt and water, and her body to store that fluid in her legs. That swelling was her heart failure written on her skin. The science makes it clear. Research published in major cardiology journals shows that nearly 70% of patients diagnosed with heart failure present with swelling in their lower extremities. It usually starts in the ankles and feet, then creeps upward toward the calves and thighs. What's more, heart-related swelling is typically symmetrical, affecting both legs equally and worsens throughout the day. A telltale sign: press a finger into the swollen area. If it leaves an indentation that lingers for several seconds, that's called pitting edema, and it's a major warning signal your heart isn't keeping up. So here's the truth: swelling that worsens daily, especially when paired with other symptoms like fatigue or shortness of breath, is not something to brush off. It's your body telling you that circulation is failing and fluid is building where it shouldn't. But swelling isn't the only way fluid reveals itself. In fact, there's an even sneakier clue that shows up on the scale, often before your eyes can see it. And that's where the next warning sign becomes critical. Most people think weight gain happens slowly: too many desserts, not enough exercise. But when it comes to heart failure, the opposite is true. The scale can jump shockingly fast. And that's not fat, it's fluid your body is desperately holding on to because your heart isn't pumping strongly enough. Doctors warn that gaining just 2 to 3 pounds in a single day, or 5 pounds in a week, is a red alert that shouldn't be ignored. Let me tell you about George, a 65-year-old retiree. He was proud of watching his weight closely. So when he noticed he was suddenly 5 pounds heavier in less than a week, he blamed his bathroom scale. But the bloating he felt, the snug fit of his pants, and the puffy feeling in his abdomen told a different story. When he finally saw his doctor, tests confirmed his heart was failing to pump effectively, triggering hormones that made his kidneys trap salt and water. Each extra pound wasn't fat, it was nearly half a liter of fluid his body couldn't get rid of. And here's the science, according to the American Heart Association. Sudden fluid-related weight gain is one of the most measurable and reliable early warning signs of heart failure. Each kilogram added can equal a full liter of trapped fluid. That's why many cardiologists instruct patients to weigh themselves daily, because the scale often detects trouble before swelling, coughing, or breathlessness even appear. So if your weight shoots up rapidly without a change in diet, don't dismiss it as a fluke or just water weight. It could be your body's emergency signal that your heart can't keep up. But there's an even stranger twist sometimes: that trapped fluid doesn't just reveal itself on the scale. It forces your bladder into overdrive at night. And that's the next sign you need to know. It sounds harmless at first, waking up a few times in the night to use the bathroom. But when it starts happening over and over again, interrupting your sleep, it could be your heart, not your bladder, that's to blame. This condition is called nocturia, and it's one of the most overlooked early signs of heart failure. Here's why: during the day, gravity pulls excess fluid into your legs and ankles, especially if your heart is weak and can't pump efficiently. But when you lie down at night, gravity shifts, and all that pooled fluid returns to your bloodstream. Your kidneys suddenly get flooded with extra fluid, and they work overtime to clear it. The result: you're running to the bathroom 2, 3, even 4 times a night, and producing unusually large amounts of urine each time. Consider Frank, a 70-year-old veteran. He thought his nightly bathroom trips were just part of getting older. But after his doctor ran tests, it turned out his kidneys weren't the problem, his heart was. The fluid that had been trapped in his body all day long was finally being released at night, and his weak heart couldn't keep up. The science backs this up. Research shows that nocturia can appear even before more obvious heart failure symptoms like swelling or shortness of breath. That's what makes it so dangerous. People blame age or too much water before bed, when in reality their heart is crying out for help. So if you're waking up night after night, with sleep broken by repeated trips to the bathroom, don't just laugh it off as a senior problem. It could be one of the earliest and most important clues that your heart is struggling. But the story doesn't stop there, because sometimes fluid doesn't just drain through your bladder, it can also sneak into your lungs, causing a nighttime cough that many people dismiss as allergies. And that's the next warning sign you need to know. You know that dry cough that seems to come out of nowhere just as you're trying to fall asleep, or that wheeze that makes you shift around in bed, searching for relief. Most people blame it on allergies, a bit of dust in the room, or even acid reflux. But when this cough appears only at night or when you lie flat, it could be your heart signaling something far more serious. Here's what's happening when you lie down. Gravity is no longer helping your body keep fluid in your lower legs. That fluid moves upward, and if your heart is too weak to handle the load, it seeps into your lungs. Your body's natural response is to cough, to try and clear what feels like an obstruction. But instead of being caused by a cold, this cough is your lungs telling you they're filling with fluid. Sometimes it even produces a pink, frothy sputum, a classic red flag for heart failure. Take Eleanor, a 66-year-old retiree. She never smoked, never had asthma, yet every night she'd lie down and start coughing. She stacked pillows, tried air purifiers, even took allergy meds. Nothing worked. Finally, her cardiologist explained that it wasn't her lungs misbehaving, it was her heart. Once she started treatment, the cough disappeared, and so did her sleepless nights. And the data confirms it. Medical literature shows that nocturnal cough and wheezing are present in a large percentage of heart failure patients, often worse in the early morning hours. They're not random inconveniences. They're signs that blood is backing up into the lungs, and your body is struggling to cope. So if your nights are disrupted by a stubborn cough or unexplained wheeze that vanishes when you sit up, don't just write it off as allergies. It could be your heart asking for attention. But this warning doesn't end in your lungs, because the very rhythm of your heart can also betray its weakness. And when your pulse itself turns erratic, that's when things get even more alarming. Have you ever felt your heart flutter, pound, or skip a beat out of nowhere? That unsettling thump in your chest that makes you pause and wonder if something's wrong. Those sensations, known as palpitations, are often brushed off as stress, caffeine, or just nerves. But when they come back again and again, especially alongside other symptoms we've already discussed, they may be one of the clearest signs your heart is fighting harder than it should. Here's the reality when your heart muscle weakens. It sometimes develops irregular rhythms. Instead of beating in its steady, reliable pattern, it stumbles, races, or even pauses for a split second. For many, it feels like their heart is doing somersaults inside their chest. Take Daniel, a 60-year-old office worker who noticed his heart racing at night while he was lying quietly in bed. He ignored it until one episode left him dizzy and sweating. Doctors later confirmed he had atrial fibrillation, an irregular rhythm tightly linked to heart failure. And the science is clear. Research from leading cardiology centers shows that cardiac arrhythmias are both a cause and a consequence of heart failure. In fact, atrial fibrillation can double the risk of worsening heart failure, creating a dangerous cycle if left untreated. Palpitations are often most noticeable at rest or at night, when you're finally still enough to feel every irregular beat. They may also bring anxiety or an eerie sense of unease, as if your body knows something is wrong. So if your heart feels like it's fluttering out of sync, don't just blame it on stress or too much coffee. When paired with fatigue, swelling, or breathlessness, it's a sign your heart's electrical system is crying for help. But palpitations are only part of the danger, because the next warning sign can literally knock you off your feet, leaving you dizzy or close to fainting. And that sudden loss of balance could be your body's way of saying, time is running out. It's one thing to feel a little lightheaded when you stand up too quickly, but if you find yourself dizzy, weak, or on the verge of blacking out during normal activities, that could be your heart sounding the alarm. When your heart can't pump enough blood to keep your brain supplied with oxygen, Even simple movements can leave you feeling like the ground is slipping away beneath your feet. Take Barbara, a 68-year-old retired nurse. She had always been steady on her feet, but recently she began to feel dizzy when walking across her living room. One afternoon, she nearly collapsed while gardening, brushing it off as dehydration. But when doctors ran tests, they discovered her heart's output had dropped so low that her brain wasn't getting consistent blood flow. What she thought was just getting older was really her heart struggling to keep her conscious. And here's the science. Clinical studies show that about 20% of heart failure patients experience syncope episodes of fainting or near fainting, often months before their diagnosis. This happens because the heart is too weak to adapt to sudden position changes or physical stress, causing blood pressure to drop and the brain to briefly lose its supply. While inner ear problems or low hydration can also cause dizziness, in combination with other symptoms like swelling or shortness of breath, it's a major red flag for heart failure. So if you find yourself pausing often to regain balance or nearly collapsing from movements that used to be easy, don't just dismiss it as a senior moment. It may be your body warning that circulation is dangerously low, but dizziness is only part of the picture because sometimes, instead of knocking you down, heart failure can press into your gut, leaving you bloated, full, and without an appetite. And that hidden digestive discomfort is the next warning sign you can't afford to miss. When we think about heart failure, we picture chest pain or shortness of breath, not digestive issues. But here's the hidden truth: your stomach can actually reveal a lot about your heart. Persistent bloating, nausea, or feeling full after just a few bites of food may not be a stomach problem at all. It may be your heart failing to circulate blood properly. Think about Charles, a 72-year-old veteran. He loved Sunday dinners with his family, but over time he noticed he couldn't finish even half his plate. Just a few forkfuls left him feeling stuffed, heavy, and nauseated. His family thought it was acid reflux, but doctors later explained his weakened heart was sending less blood to his digestive tract. Meanwhile, fluid was pooling in his abdomen, pressing on his stomach and liver. The result: he lost his appetite and thought his digestive system was failing, when in reality, it was his heart crying for help, and the science confirms this. Studies show that gastrointestinal symptoms are common yet overlooked in heart failure patients. Reduced blood flow to the digestive organs, along with congestion of the liver and fluid in the abdomen, leads to early satiety, nausea, and bloating. These aren't random stomach troubles, they're direct consequences of poor circulation and rising fluid pressure inside your body. So if your meals suddenly feel like a burden, or if you're constantly bloated without explanation, don't just blame it on food choices or indigestion. It might be one of the most subtle but serious signals of heart failure. But even that isn't the end of the story, because sometimes it's not just sitting at the dinner table that makes breathing hard. Even something as simple as bending forward to tie your shoes can trigger breathlessness. And that unique symptom reveals even more about your heart. Imagine leaning over to tie your shoes or pick something up from the floor, and within seconds you're gasping for air. That's not being out of shape. That's a red flag called bendopnea, and it's one of the most specific warning signs of heart failure. Most people have never heard of it, yet for those living with heart problems, it can be the moment they realize something is deeply wrong. Take Michael, a 61-year-old grandfather. He noticed that whenever he leaned forward to tie his sneakers, a wave of breathlessness hit him almost instantly. At first, he thought it was just his belly pressing on his lungs. But when he mentioned it to his doctor, tests revealed advanced heart failure. His heart was already struggling with high filling pressures, and that simple bend forward pushed it past its limit. What seemed like a small inconvenience was actually a clinical red flag, and the science is striking. Bendopnea was first recognized in medical literature in 2014, and research shows it's present in about 30% of patients with heart failure. Strongly associated with more advanced disease and higher mortality risk? The mechanism is clear. Bending forward increases abdominal pressure, which pushes against the diaphragm and raises pressure in the chest cavity. For a healthy heart, this isn't a problem, but for a weakened heart, the added stress is enough to trigger immediate breathlessness. That's why doctors now consider bendopnea a simple, non-invasive sign that can reveal elevated heart pressures without advanced testing. So here's the takeaway of bending forward to tie your shoes, lean over a sink, or pick up something from the floor makes you breathless within seconds. Don't ignore it. Healthy individuals almost never experience this. It's a highly specific red flag that your heart could be failing under pressure. But bendopnea isn't the final warning, because the last sign doesn't just make you short of breath or tired. It shows up in your circulation, leaving your hands and feet icy cold even in warm weather. And that chilling clue may be the most overlooked of all. Your body has a survival instinct when your heart can't pump enough blood. It prioritizes vital organs like your brain and heart and cuts circulation to the places it considers less important. The result, your hands and feet turn cold, sometimes even bluish, no matter how warm the room is. For some, this warning feels subtle, like numb fingers that won't warm up. For others, it's constant icy feet that make walking uncomfortable. Think of Helen, a 74-year-old grandmother. Even in summer, she wore thick socks and complained her toes felt frozen. She tried heating pads and warm baths, but nothing worked. When her doctor checked, her pulse pressure, the difference between her systolic and diastolic blood pressure, was abnormally narrow. That meant her heart wasn't pushing out enough blood with each beat. Her cold feet problem was actually a circulation crisis caused by heart failure. The science is sobering. Normally, your pulse pressure should be about 40 millimeters of mercury or more. But when it narrows significantly, it signals reduced stroke volume, your heart's ability to eject blood with each pump. Clinical research shows this change often develops gradually and is a reliable sign of declining cardiac output. Combined with icy hands and feet, it paints a chilling picture of a heart that's losing its strength. So if your extremities feel constantly cold, or if your doctor notes an unusually narrow pulse pressure, don't take it lightly. It may mean your circulation is failing, and your heart is struggling far more than you realize. But here's the good news: catching these signs early can make the difference between decline and recovery. And in a moment, I'll show you why recognizing these clues and acting on them can literally save years of your life. If you recognize yourself in any of these warning signs, don't panic and don't ignore them either. Heart failure is not the end of the road. With early detection, the right lifestyle changes, and proper medical care, many people go on to live long, fulfilling lives. What matters most is that you listen to your body and take action before a small symptom becomes a crisis. That's why I encourage you to save this video so you can come back to it anytime and share it with someone you love who might be at risk. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. By doing so, you'll never miss the latest medical insights, life-saving tips, and practical steps to protect your heart health. Remember this: your heart is stronger than you think, and with care and attention, it can carry you through many more years of life, laughter, and love. Stay informed, stay hopeful, and never underestimate the power of catching the signs early.